They were trenching in fiber optic cable and unearthed, I think it was a skull. And immediately they stopped, called the authorities, and the North Sioux City Police Department came out and started looking at it and doing what they do. And I think they quickly realized this was probably not a recent incident, so that's when they called in the state people to research it. And when the state came out, I think they called in a number of the tribes just in case it was an Indian burial site, because I guess another law applies to that. You got to bring in federal authorities. And the tribes were pretty certain that it was not an Indian burial site, primarily because that's not how they buried their dead. They usually collected the bones after they had been on the scaffolding and buried them in either containers or singles. So they were pretty sure of that. And then after about 2 or 3 years of not hearing anything, I contacted the archaeological department and said I'd given it some thought and I thought we could figure out who these people were. At the same time, you know, at that point there weren't that many people there, so that kind of limits your population of people that may be buried at the site.
Okay.
The archaeological department believes the burials took place in the 1860, 1870 range.
Okay. And who would have been living here at that time?
Oh, you had an eclectic group of people at that time. If you take the North Sioux City exit and go a half-mile north and a half-mile south, you're looking at primarily people that had either retired from the fur trading industry because it was drying up. Actually, furs kind of dried up in 1830, but they started trading buffalo robes until that time. And then by the 1850s, 1860s, the buffalo robes were drying up as well. So a lot of these frontiersmen that were living up in the upper Missouri regions, primarily North Dakota and upper South Dakota, had started moving down here. And in fact, many of them moved to Sioux City between, I would say, Sergeant Floyd's grave and Sergeant Bluff. There were some pretty noteworthy traders that lived there at the time. Well, I sent him an email and I said, gee, I think we can figure this out. And I think I gave him 2 or 3 names that were high probability burials at the site. And then nothing happened for about 6 months. And I thought, well, they weren't that interested in it. And then out of the blue, I got a call. And they said they had had a problem with their email system and they were interested. So I set up a meeting and we talked over the phone for probably an hour one day. And from that point on, I said, well, if they want information, I'll get them information. So that's what started my research into the topic. And I've been sending them stuff, set probably to a fault. They're probably sick of hearing from me by now, but we've come up with quite a list of people that could be probable burials at the site, and that's what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. I think right now I have 33 people that could be buried at the site, and of that 33, realistically, there's probably maybe 10 that are high probabilities in my mind.
Okay.
And one of the problems that we'll have in identifying, there's I think at least 3 infants out there that I can't remember if it's 3 or 4. And that's going to be really tough to identify them, short of using DNA or something like that, just because they may not even have names yet when they were buried.